It was the winter of 1993. And why was Indiana the only state east of the Mississippi without a native plant society? 4 avid gardeners, a writer, a wildlife photographer, a nonprofit leader, and a medical researcher decided to do something about it. They hosted an exploratory meeting, and that spring, the Indiana Native Plant Society was born. The idea of a native plant society drew in academic and field botanists, land conservationists, and plant ecologists, but also artists, horticulturalists, landscape architects, nature photographers, and people who simply loved gardens and nature. The year ended with 180 charter members and $2,648 in the bank. So what was the plan? A lot of ideas got kicked around. We could educate ourselves and others about native plants, help with plant identification, promote native plantings in public spaces, publish a newsletter, organize plant rescues, plan field trips, keep invasive plants from ruining natural areas, build enthusiasm for preserving and appreciating native plants, add native plants to our gardens. A tall order, but in the 30 years of the Indiana Native Plant Society, we've done it all. We've mounted annual conferences where experts educated us about native plants. We've planted demonstration gardens at public places and given grants to local efforts. 30 volumes of our newsletter, the INPS journal, reside in Harvard's Biodiversity Heritage Library. We've rescued countless natives from the bulldozer and sold them at plant sales. We've journeyed to see natives in natural areas and designed gardens. We've collaborated with state and other organizations to move invasive plants out of the nursery trade. Our Facebook group, numbering over 50,000, is chock full of photos and guidance to help people identify and appreciate native plants. And we have provided home gardeners with solid information about native plants, how to use them, and where to buy them. From 4 gardeners around a kitchen table, the Indiana Native Plant Society has grown to more than 1,000 member households, with 7 regional chapters to engage members at the local level. And it's all thanks to volunteers from all walks of life who lend their time and passion to this great organization. As we've grown to understand nature's delicate interrelationships, the future points us to a broader focus than strictly native plants. A looming biodiversity crisis demands that we advocate for abundant ecosystems, that we recognize the lives of our fellow creatures are impacted by what we plant and don't plant in our backyards, and that we must light a spark in our younger generation so they grow to love native plants not just for their beauty, but for their foundational role in supporting our wildlife. Therefore, we are now focused on 3 main action themes: shaping champions for biodiversity, nourishing the web of life, and bringing youth to nature. Can our group of dedicated volunteers fulfill such aspirations? With 30 years of learning and doing, the Indiana Native Plant Society is up to the task.
I think a champion for biodiversity is anyone who is honestly trying their best to bring awareness about our natural habitats, promote protecting our natural habitats, and then planting native plants and getting rid of invasives.
I've led hikes in existing natural areas over the past 25 years to interpret the plant community as it relates to the geology of the site and the disturbance history that may be there. Restoration sites, especially when it comes to prairies, are very critical in that almost all of the tallgrass prairie in the eastern tallgrass region has been converted to agriculture. So there's very little remnant prairie left. And this is a really great site because this prairie is also attached to an existing savanna remnant. So insects and animals that have been able to hang on now have an expanded area of habitat. Humans are increasingly the determining factor in the presence of plant communities. Humans are making the decisions that are going to affect whether other organisms have a home for the future.
And without the assistance of champions for biodiversity, we're going to lose a lot of these plants in our lifetimes because our natural areas are being encroached upon by development, by invasive species, and we need to stop that from happening and protect these natural areas. So the more people we can get on board doing that, the better off we'll be.
Invasive species disrupt biodiversity in many ways. And this can happen on a very large scale. Things like Asian bush honeysuckle, an invasive shrub that can get 15 feet tall, covers hundreds of thousands of acres in Indiana. When they move into an area, they displace the native plants and all of the food chains that are out there. So it's a real concern for impacts to biodiversity.
So until we want to be the 20th generation of people living on Mars, we have this planet that we need to take care of and not destroy it. You can see the glandular hairs. That helps. A lot of times it's education and experiences are the two things that are lacking for people to want to get out there and help. If you have an interest in plants or anything with nature, just start learning. There's free resources out there, and don't get overwhelmed. Nobody knows everything. It's impossible. Just go out there and learn one thing at a time and just enjoy it. And I think you'll really start to see forests a lot differently. Now when I go out, I see forests as communities. I don't see them as just trees and plants and dirt.
I'm able to help people to understand that yes, if you plant native plants in your yard, you're doing a good thing, but here's why, and here's the story behind that plant. Here's why this plant is important. And to take people on hikes in natural areas and show them the amazing biodiversity of these areas when they think that they're seeing just a handful of plants and I show them there are 40 plants within a square yard. I think that that kind of education excites people, shows people that there's more that can be done, and helps overall the Native Plant Society to be a champion for biodiversity and all of our members to become better champions for biodiversity individually as well.
Which means we want our members to actively work to help conserve and increase appreciation of native plants.
Who's eating all my plants? Well, that's the whole purpose of your plant, is to be eaten, it's food. That's the whole purpose of the flower, is not for us. The purpose of the flower is to be beautiful, to attract pollinators. It's not for humans. Now it has that secondary effect, but plants exist to be part of the food web.
There are certain insects that rely specifically on certain plant species to be able to survive. A lot of people know the story about the milkweed and the monarch butterfly. A lot of people don't know about species like the Karner blue butterfly. This butterfly species, which is federally threatened, can only survive if there's wild lupin, Lupinus perennis. Without wild lupin in the landscape, we don't have Karner blue butterflies. That's just one example of where a species is totally lost from the landscape without having that native plant species here. There are many, many, many examples like that.
Oak trees harbor a large diversity of Lepidoptera larvae. Well, guess what? Birds feed their young. In fact, a lot of our birds are neotropical migrants that winter in the tropics that migrate through here in the spring to places further north. Their migration is actually timed to the trees leafing out in that hatch of caterpillars. So those caterpillars actually fuel their migration going north. So if we were to lose our oak trees, then we're going to lose all those Lepidoptera larvae. It's a cascading effect if you start to lose your native plants.
Trying to save one species is also not the goal. The key for any ecosystem, any living ecosystem to thrive, whether it's plants, animals, humans, is diversity. If we don't have plants, we don't have bugs, we don't have bugs, we don't have birds and mammals and everything else.
That connection to me is just fantastic to think about and amazing to think about. And I don't know how somebody can't get excited when they actually start to see those connections. So I think we can all help to nurture the web of life by protecting our natural areas. Even by planting plants in our yards, in our landscapes, means taking care of the base of that web of life. A lot of times these plantings aren't going to bring in the specialist insects necessarily. Things like the Karner blue butterfly aren't going to show up if you just plant lupin in your yard. But a lot of the generalist insects will. And it's really amazing to watch how these plants serve as magnets for native insects.
A lot of people think that they don't have a green thumb. And normally that turns out not to be true. It just takes a little time and experience. But with native plants, they're very adapted to this climate, so they don't need a lot of fuss. It's a great way to get into gardening, and gardening is a great way to get to know our natives.
By planting native plants in your yard, you are helping to nourish the web of life.
But we also care about the natural areas, the forests, the wetlands, the prairies, that are the homes for these native plants. And conserving those natural areas is a fundamental part of what the Indiana Native Plant Society is about.
Bringing youth to nature is a priority action theme for Indiana Native Plant Society, and knowing that the next generation is going to be preserving, they're going to be restoring, and most importantly, they're going to be stewarding. Knowing that they're doing that is what keeps us going.
Letha's Fund is a grant program that was named after Letha Quizer. The program provides funding for transportation and naturalist fees and other supplies that teachers or other youth groups need to take field trips to natural areas to get kids out into nature. Since 2008, Letha's Fund has awarded over $72,000 to get over 17,000 kids out into state parks, nature preserves, and local neighborhood parks. The teachers really value getting this funding that's often not available through their schools, so they wouldn't be able to do these field trips without having the support of Letha's Fund. We support 10 to 20 field trips a year, and we'd love to see that number be closer to 30.
We like to get them when they're young so that it becomes part of their upbringing, so that they identify with these native plants as they're growing up, that they learn more as they go on.
To kind of feed on their natural curiosity, but also in an environment where they feel safe and comfortable to explore.
So a team of very creative people came together and created Wake Up Woods, a book that features what it's like in the springtime in an Indiana forest.
Trout lilies. Yellow and white trout lilies are common early spring wildflowers that are nearly...
It was very well received. We're in our third printing. Over 6,500 copies have been sold. It's an award-winning book, and it has been so successful that a team within the Native Plant Society is now working on a second book that's going to focus on plants in wetlands.
We have made it a goal every year now for the past couple of years to work with at least 3 community or school gardens to do native plant programming with them. And we want our next generation of stewards and advocates to be reflective of the communities that we serve.
We are at Lakeside Elementary in Warren Township. The school has an internal courtyard that's easily accessible, and using the expertise of some of the members of the Native Plant Society, we're going to put in a pollinator garden, which is plants that you can taste, see, smell, and touch.
We are creating a demonstration garden where we are planting different wildflowers that are native to Indiana, and the Indiana Native Plant Society provided a grant to help fund the project.
Fountain Square Community Garden is part of a program that the Southeast Neighborhood District is running, and the part of INPS at Fountain Square Garden is to plant natives as a pollinator garden. So the crew have all recently come out of the justice system, and this program is about building work skills, job skills, personal skills, but they also are learning about rain gardens and composting and doing a lot of gardening. That's why it's so important that we have urban gardens, that we have urban parks and urban preserves. We have access to the river in the city. Without that, people can't develop that relationship to nature, and they can't be the next generation of stewards. When we talk about biodiversity, that includes human diversity as well.
I'm a member of the Indiana Native Plant Society, and I have been for almost as long as the organization has been around, because I genuinely like the people in it.
It's a learning community, it's a nurturing community, and it's a growing community.
It's a great social activity as well as an organization that really helps promote education at all ages.
It's exciting to me because it helps me feel like I'm a part of a bigger effort that brings together people from all walks of life who share a passion for native plants.
We're fortunate to have many of our members being natural resource professionals. It's a great link for us to have because it links the Native Plant Society to those agencies and organizations who can really share their expertise, and all of our members can then learn from them.
Our top botanists are always out there in the community identifying and teaching, whether it be printing books, field guides, whether it be doing YouTube videos, native plant sales, workshops, helping people identify invasives. There's always something new to learn, and it's accessible to everybody.
Each of the chapters within the Indiana Native Plant Society hosts a number of hikes throughout the year in natural areas.
I love that about the Native Plant Society. It's opened my eyes to not just places to hike and free knowledge, but then being also around people that are passionate about nature.
And together we can make a real difference in conserving our natural resources, protecting native plants, and making sure that we have healthy, diverse ecosystems into the future.